Resident Evil 2 Remake was an instant success the moment it released back in 2019, and is one of my personal favorite remakes to appear within the last few years, since that's all AAA companies want to focus on these days. And while I loved the hell out of this remake for its newfound emphasis on the story and the mix-up with its modernized gameplay, I couldn't help but wonder what this game would have been like if they had just kept the original fixed camera design. But thanks to just 2 mods that I'll be covering inside of this video, you'll not only be able to bring back that nostalgic gameplay style from the original Resident Evil games with those fixed cameras and the original tank controls, but I also wanted to showcase a couple of other ways that these mods that I'll cover in this video will also allow you to play Resident Evil 2 in both first person and VR if you happen to own a headset, just like in later titles with Resident Evil 7 and even Village. So join me as we check out the many ways to play Resident Evil 2 Remake with just 2 simple mods. So first things first, the main mod that we're going to need to get things rolling is the REFramework plugin made by Praydog, which is a pretty popular mod, and it's required to get everything that we're going to cover in this video up and running. The REFramework mod offers a ton of adjustments to the game, like field of view adjustments in both third person and first person, the option to set a key to manually bring out your flashlight, and a ton of other options as well, and is pretty much required for all of the mods that I'm going to cover inside of this video. But there's also quite a few other adjustable mechanics available just in this plugin alone. By default, the Framework plugin will launch as soon as the game opens and will have a hotkey set up as well to open and close it whenever you need. And many of these options that are available in this plugin are extremely customizable right from the get-go. And it's as easy to install as just simply dropping the files over into your game's folder. Now, if you don't plan on playing in VR, however, which we'll talk about more in detail later in the video, you can leave these 2 specific files out as they won't really be required if you don't have a headset. But the other mod you'll want to install if you're wanting to bring back those classic, nostalgic fixed camera positions of the past, then you're going to need the Resident Evil 2 Remake Classic mod by alphaZomega over on the Nexus. This one is also really simple to install by just dragging and dropping the files over into your game's folder. However, both of the mods that I covered here as well can also be installed with a mod manager of your choice. But once installed, to enable these fixed camera positions, you just need to enable the mod inside of the REFramework menu. And once enabled, by default, the game will transform into an incredible look at what Resident Evil 2 could have looked like in our heads back when the game first dropped in 1998. But in a completely updated and modernized way that honestly is incredible to look at the entire playthrough. I got lost just from looking around at the environment so much, even from the start, that I ended up getting cooked by the zombies just by looking around at the incredible art style that this game has going for it. But I also blame a little bit of that on the controls as well, because you see, not only are you greeted with the original fixed camera positions of these classic titles, but you'll also get the original controls as well. And I just kept playing this mod with thumbstick on accident without even realizing that the mod author themselves recommends to not play with the thumbstick. So I had to kind of like relearn playing a game like this on the D-pad, which has been a while since I've done that, since something maybe like with Parasite Eve a few years back.
My name is Nigel Dornberry.
No! But the fantastic part about this mod is that just like with the others found inside of the REFramework, the RE2 Classic mod is completely adjustable all the way around. And the way it works is instead of having an over-the-shoulder camera like in the remake, the camera is just placed in preset locations, with the game bringing back a rudimentary style version of tank controls found back in the original Resident Evil releases. If you're not a fan of those tank controls, however, don't fret, as you do have the ability to actually change up your control scheme back to what the original game already had. Or you could have those like weird semi-tank controls that showed up on some survival horror titles back in the day that would consistently get you stuck during camera changes, and I always hated using that. But it's here and it's available if you want it. All the way to having the basic default tank controls that I know and personally love from the original game, complete with the classic aiming style, using the right trigger to aim and using X or square to shoot. And speaking of shooting, by default, this mod is going to use the original game's crosshair to help with gauging your accuracy while pulling off pot shots. But you could also switch things up a bit and lean a bit more into some difficulty by replacing the reticle with a laser sight for each gun, or just flat out turning off the reticle and laser completely and bringing it back to how the original game had it, where it's mainly just based on your directional aiming and maybe some reliance on the auto aim. And speaking of auto aim, that's also another thing that can be adjusted inside of the mod's menu. With the default options being more of a soft lock type of auto aim, it not only allows you to lock on to different enemies that are in your field of view, but you can also pick out individual body parts to shoot on that enemy as well, allowing you to still use precision while shooting without having the ability to look over your shoulder all the time. Or hell, if you wanted to, you could adjust the mod to go into third person mode whenever you do aim your weapon. It's completely up to you. Almost every single aspect of this classic camera mod is adjustable to the point that you could even create your own camera angles across the entire game if you so wanted to. The level of customization within this mod itself is insane, and even if you didn't want to adjust all of that, playing with the mod's default settings is already in of itself an incredible experience, and gave me another excuse to run through this fantastic remake yet again. And hell, the default camera angles of this mod are damn near perfectly executed, with some shots being straight up recreations of the ones you may remember from the original version of Resident Evil 2, which proves how incredible the level design was in this remake and how close they were able to recapture the original feel of the police station, the laboratories, and just all of the environments in general, especially with the main lobby of the RPD, even down to the camera angles in that giant elevator that shows up later in the game. It's so fucking nostalgic, especially if you're a fan of the original. Some camera angles also go for a Dutch angle in some cases, giving that old horror feel, and I love it. It's so fucking cool. And because of this mod, playing through this game yet again with it installed, weirdly enough, kind of felt like I was playing this game for the first time again. I know, it's weird. But one thing that I found hilarious at first was I kept forgetting throughout my playthrough that I could actually move in this game while aiming. Just because my brain was so used to the original and how every time you aim, you pretty much stop in place. But no, with this new gameplay loop, you can actually keep moving. So don't be like me and just stand in place every time. Plus, with some doors that I'd walk through, my muscle memory would kick in from the originals, and I'd just expect a cutscene of a door opening when I walk through the door. And hell, this classic mod is so damn good, in fact, that I went as far as playing through an entire hardcore playthrough with both characters, just because I wanted the true classic experience the entire time, with all the newer visuals of this incredible remake. And it really makes me question why we're not getting any horror games in the AAA space with fixed cameras anymore, because this shit really adds to the tension in so many different ways. And I'm not saying this should be a replacement type of way of playing the game, but I would highly recommend that you check it out and at least give yourself one playthrough with this mod. Thankfully though, we are kind of getting a few games within the indie scene that are bringing back the older survival horror style like this, like with Hollow Body and its semi-fixed / follow camera that's akin to Silent Hill, or Crow Country with its return to the classic PS1 art style and fixed camera design. But of course, that's why you move away from AAA and you kind of stick with the modding scene or indie scene, because honestly, that's where the real innovation is these days. But if you wanted to play through the true remade way of playing the original Resident Evil 2, but with a more updated story and incredible visuals of this remake, then look no further than the RE2 Classic mod. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, there are other ways to play through Resident Evil 2 Remake that more or less place us in the shoes of Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield by literally having us see through these characters' eyes. With the first person option that's available within the REFramework menu, you can pretty much bring over the same gameplay style of the recent Resident Evil games and inject it into the classic 2019 remake. And while yes, the mod is essentially shrinking down your character's head to the size of an atom and placing the camera there instead, it really does a good job of translating what it would be like to see through these characters' eyes. Since the game doesn't have any sort of dedicated first-person animations, we actually get to see the entirety of these characters' animations play from their perspective. And it's one of those reminders that we need more first-person games designed like this, instead of just being a floating camera with some arms attached to it. Because every action that these characters take feels so visceral and real, to the point that if you didn't have a VR headset, this would be the closest thing you could get to that experience. And you can even adjust certain things like camera bob or camera shake, even inside of the framework menu, if you don't want those super immersive options. But overall, with first person enabled, it's an incredibly immersive experience as well. And in some cases, it almost feels like they might have thought about releasing this game in first person, because some sequences play out incredibly well using this perspective. And seeing the zombies and the monsters this up close and personal allows you to really see a lot of the more grotesque details that the creature designers of this game included. Plus, if you really wanted to dive into the minds of these characters and happen to have a VR headset that's capable of connecting to your PC, you can also play through this whole game, this time literally in the shoes of each character. And while we won't likely be getting Resident Evil 4 Remake VR officially anytime soon, with it unfortunately being locked to PSVR, you can, however, engage with RE2 Remake in VR, and it works mostly as a VR game should. With full depth motion controls, it allows you to actually move around in Leon or Claire's body, and you can really get up close and personal with the undead while playing this, or just up close and personal with yourself. Just like the other mods though, this is incredibly customizable in the REFramework menu, and you can even pull up the framework menu while in VR, even though it's kind of wonky and you have to really position it in a weird way, but yeah, it works. And it pretty much works right out of the box, as long as you have either one of those two necessary VR files I mentioned at the beginning. As long as you do, the game will start in Steam VR or whatever client you end up using, and from there, you can just load into the game and dive right into the nightmare. Of course, this isn't perfect, as this game was not exactly meant to be played in VR. So expect some weird visual bugs here and there, especially when it comes to your character. And when it comes to handling two-handed weapons, it feels so awkward. Like with Leon's shotgun having this weird glitch, especially for me when he's pumping between shots, or the game magically reloading for you instead of being able to do it ourselves. But I mean, hey, like I said, this game was not meant to be played in VR. But besides that, playing through this game in VR is my second preferred method besides the classic camera. It allows you to see so much of what the devs included in this game from an up close and personal perspective, even more than first person, and really lets you appreciate all the finer details of the game's engine. Even the cutscenes allow you to fully move the camera around with your head, but you can also see a bunch of small details outside of the camera's view that weren't really intended to be seen by the player, which can yield some pretty silly results. Oh my God. But besides those like typical issues, they're gonna happen in a non-native VR game, it's a really damn good experience to play through, and I highly recommend that you do if you happen to have a headset and a copy of Resident Evil 2. Seriously, you owe yourself an opportunity to play through this title in VR because it's an exhilarating experience. And if your PC can handle it, oh man, it looks fucking good in VR too. I highly recommend playing it. It's insane what the modding community can come up with, especially when it comes to the remakes of these Resident Evil titles. In fact, the REFramework mod that I covered here inside of this video can be used across the entire series. From Resident Evil 2 Remake all the way to the Resident Evil 4 Remake that just came out, you can pretty much adjust a ton of settings that are available here. Although I think with Resident Evil 4 Remake, you don't have the option to do first person. That's a separate mod that's available, but I think VR is still available, just without the body motion and stuff. But if you want to check it out, I would highly recommend installing the REFramework into all of the different remakes if you have them, and just experimenting a little bit and seeing what you can do. But if you haven't checked out the classic mode yet, personally, out of all of the different ways that you could play Resident Evil 3 Remake, that's gotta be my personal favorite. Seeing those classic camera angles and shots from the original titles brought back so much nostalgia that it actually kind of made me want to go back and play the original Resident Evil 2. But if you want to bring back that nostalgic feel, just with a brand new coat of paint and some new story beats with the new remake, I would highly recommend you check out the RE2 Classic mod. Or if you're wanting to play it in first person or VR like we talked about here, or just want to, use a manual flashlight inside of your game, also use that REFramework mod. The REFramework mod is pretty much essential if you own these games on PC, so definitely have it installed if you don't already. Anyways, guys, that is it for me. I hope you all had a great one. I know this is a little bit different from the stuff that I usually cover. I do typically cover a lot of like total conversion mods and stuff like that. But whenever I see another mod that just simply stands out for me, especially when it comes to this classic mod, I really wanted to go ahead and highlight it and make a video around it. But there was other ways to play this too, so I thought, hey, this was a good idea. I'll eventually be coming back to more GTA mods down the line. There are only so many total conversions for GTA that I can cover, and comprehensive mod lists that are out there too, but we will return to that probably soon here in the future. I will be covering some other games like this down the line, so keep an eye out, and if you want to see something down the line that you would maybe want me to cover that you think would be interesting, let me know in the comments down below. And if you played through Resident Evil 2 Remake with any of these options, let me know in the comments below as well what you personally thought of replaying this game with these different options. Also, of course, like, subscribe, all that jazz, and follow me on my other socials and Twitch and even my Discord if you want to join the community. But that is it for me, everybody. I hope you had a great day today, and if not, I hope tomorrow is better. But I will see you all on the next one. Play-Doh out.